We can't just sit in life and say it was because of this that I am this way. And no, it's because you're choosing that every single day. Now you have a choice to make every single day, is either to continue to let that stop you or to seek for help because you don't know how to.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the First Optimal podcast here with Ana Capozzoli. Really pumped to have her on. Bunch of good stuff we're going to get into today. Definitely her story and kind of her journey to what she's doing now and her personal health journey, as well as helping women all over the world. And going to get into like weight loss, gut health, hormones, longevity, just feeling good. So I kind of like your approach, Ana, and that's why I'm excited to have you on. Just overall, you're really sharp when it comes to the science and the nutrition and all those things, but you also, I feel like you have a good finger on the mental part, or the one's mindset, and kind of how to look at things. And I really appreciate that about your content and your approach. But thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Joe. And amazing pronunciation to my last name. I have to just put this out there. You said it
Practice.
right on the spot. And I am so excited to be here with you today because I know from your end, you're actually walking the talk. Your practice does everything. So I'm super excited to be on this cast with you and to talk about all those good stuff that I think it serves a lot of people out there that's tuning in. And the more that we can get into the core of everything, I think the more people can open up their eyes into that there is something, there is more than what we've been taught to. So I'm excited. Let's do this.
Good stuff.
So
Good stuff.
much.
Well, and I think like one of the things I really like, and this is even before we had a chance to connect, but I looked at your Instagram, and I think what's really cool about it, and we'll pull it up a little later in the show, and it'll be in the show notes for everybody listening in. But you really, it was encouraging for me to see, and I have to admit, I stole this idea from you, and I don't even think we talked I stole this before I think we met, so I'll wrap myself out right now. But you have the My Story
Oh yeah.
carousel post pinned at the top of your Instagram, and I just think, I was like, that's brilliant. Like, not only, but it's brilliant, but it's also a little courageous, right? Because you're being vulnerable. You're talking about shortcomings. You're talking about your struggles, and you're talking about your journey, which I'm excited to get into today. But it really, not only did it help me and a few people on our team that I encouraged to do the same thing, um, but I think it also was like, oh, like I'm about to put myself out there. Like, we're okay. So, and I also think it's helped others. Like, it's the second highest viewed piece of content I have right now is the My Story piece of content. And so I think that's really, really cool. So I wonder, that being said, if we can maybe get into a little bit of your story and kind of what led you here and all that good stuff.
I love that. And thank you for sharing because I think when I created that post, because I've been on social media since 2019, and I think in the era we live in, we just we kind of put a picture or a thought behind the character by what we see. That's all we have. And a lot of us struggle to share more because of that vulnerability, because of that uncomfortable point in our life where we don't really want to share, but yet is what gave us where we are right now. It becomes, I have this saying, your pain becomes your superpower.
Mm,
It becomes deeper than your purpose. It becomes so deep ingrained in you that you want to share and you want to help others. So I started embracing myself when I understood that part of me, that I am working with women that can relate and also are in a place in their life that I had the chance to heal and overcome. So let's just say, not sharing our story, you take away a big factor of where you are and what you do, right? Because it becomes so much more important than just a product, just a service. There's so many health coach, there's so many fitness trainers now that's so out there, which I love to see in abundance
right.
because there's a severe need of that, right? But also understanding that we all started from a point that nobody quite sees at this point in our life, especially
Right.
in social media. We're always showing the brighter side of life.
Yep.
We always want to be the motivators. We always want to be inspirational. And that's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. That's very beautiful. But where is the part of us before that even was born? And that's where my post came about, because in my life, I always thought that people saw me a certain way and immediately had this idea of me, right? She looks good, everything's easy for her, this isn't that, right? Especially because of the way we look, right? And that was the opposite of my story. I had such a rough journey in my life, which I'm so grateful looking backwards that I can honor that and say thanks to that I am here showing this brighter side of me, right? Things that if it wasn't for that, I would not be here with this face, with this way I speak and what I'm teaching and serving. So when I started sharing that part of me, the main intention was I'm not just what you see. I'm not just this perfect human. Some people say you look like AI. And I'm like, I'm not the least perfect human. But yes, we live in a world where physical or the first thing we see is the first thing we judge, right? Even
Yep.
though we don't try to subconsciously, it takes us immediately there. So when I wanted to shift my audience, when I wanted to have a different intention in the way I was coming into play, I'm like, this is my movie. Like, let me just share how it started. And I needed to be okay being vulnerable, which is such a good point that you brought to the table. First, we got to understand that vulnerability is not a weakness. And I had to take a lot of work for that because I grew up very masculine. I grew up
Yeah.
like I needed to survive. I was taking care of my family since an early age. We immigrated the US when I was 9 years old. I was already working when I was 10, right? Suffering from tons of health issues through my upbringing, but yet didn't have the funds to cover them. So we had
Yeah.
to figure out a different way to kind of live with them. That whole system of, oh, I can't fix it. I just got to live with it. I got to normalize feeling this way. And for me, that was such a beautiful awakening to understand that the way I was brought up, which was to numb emotions because we needed to survive, right? It was great for me at that time.
Right.
Whenever I'm embracing now and shifting into understanding that, hey, I understand how it feels to be terrible, to feel helpless, to not have the funds, to not have the guidance, to where is it that I can shift and heal, then everything that's when it started to change. So sharing that part of me and seeing that my journey and what I thought it was weakness became my strength, that's when I wanted to even share more to the world. So that's amazing that you started doing that because even when I meet people, the first thing I ask is, what's your story?
Yeah.
This is not what I see. It's who you are at your core or who you were led to be, which is the most beautiful thing we own as humans. So I actually want to go read yours.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's my wife did the same, and I think it's a great grounding too to like look back at it. I mean, I just and I had a couple questions about yours too because I just find it so fascinating and encouraging for people, me included, because where I am today is definitely different than where I grew up, but there's certainly people that grew up much harder than me. So I'm curious because you moved here from Venezuela. Did you already know English before you came to the US, or did you have to learn that as well?
I didn't know actually. My mom was a single mom and I have an older brother. And when we came, we were kind of running away from the dictatorship, right?
Okay.
And saw the country going very bad. My mom had this insane courage to say, let's start all over again in a country that we don't know anyone or the language, or we don't have anything going for us. We're just going to test it and try it out.
Wow.
So I honor her because I was extremely courageous. And she saw above and beyond that my entire family didn't. My entire family is still in Venezuela. So when we came, zero English. I didn't know anything. I got here. It was that season of my life where I was still very naive. In our
Mm,
countries, we're still very kids at 9. But in the US, you grow up very fast,
Yeah.
insanely fast. What I got to see when I was in school, when I came here, was kids in my class raping other kids, being handcuffed. You're talking about 9, 10-year olds. So it opened my eyes to a different world where I was never even aware of. I still believe in Santa Claus when I came here, which is insane, right?
Mhm.
I was so naive. So I was very uncomfortable. I went through the bullying, but then I became like the fighter in that sense. Then I went and started ESOL class. They started teaching me English. I'm a huge learner into listening. I love listening. That's how I get information fastest. And as we started progressing, my mom was working as however she could. I started seeing her struggles, and I started finding a job at 10. I look older, so I'm like, hey, I'm 14, I'm 15.
Yep.
Started babysitting. I started doing jobs so I can help her kind of pay the bills. Not that she asked me for it, but I just saw the need. I'm like, I can do this. Why not? Why can I? So
Sure.
I started working. When I started working, I started having a lot of eating disorders.
Mm.
This is where I came into knowledge about my eating disorder, because in my country, we are all known for beauty. Everybody wants to be Miss Universe, everybody wants to be the next perfect woman, right? And at the age of 3, I was set into an academy where they taught me how to eat, how to walk in heels. Okay. We're
Mm.
talking about 3, 4 years old, and you're straight up into a diet of this is not good for you. You got to avoid carbs, you got to avoid cheese. And I'm still a child. So my first perception of food was enemy. Like if I eat this, I'm going to get fat, which means I'm not accepted, not only by society, but by my own mother, right?
Mhm.
Because this is kind of like what they imprinted in us as growing up. So when I get here and I start to see more things, I'm open to a bigger world. I'm open to something that I never could have thought. I start seeing the food and I'm like, no, I don't want to eat. And then at that point, I noticed that I avoid so much food that I started getting ill. So I started having
Mm.
seizures. My period, I got my first period at 10 years old, and it was coming in and out, was non-existent. But when I started having seizures constantly, that's when the awareness happened. We went to a doctor and they're like, hey, we did a million studies. We just think this is a part of epilepsy and we can just treat it with a pill. And at that age, I was 13 years old. I told my mom, I can't live on a pill. I can't live on a pill. Like, I don't believe in pharmaceuticals to that extent. And I'm still a child, right? So,
Right.
like, there's something more that's happening that we can't understand, but I'm going to learn to live with it. Again, we're learning to live with this. It becomes your placebo effect. It becomes that
Right.
state where you just like, okay, this is part of me. This is what I'm supposed to live into. And nobody ever said to me, how is your diet? Or are you nourishing yourself? My mom's working crazy hours. She left food at home, but I basically didn't eat. And that just continued getting worse. Not only was I having seizures every day, but I was having seizures 3 times a day.
Mm.
And it became severely bad. So when it hits fast forward in my country, and I was never exposed to fitness per se.
Mm.
I was never exposed to bodybuilding or exercises. I was just exposed to dancing, which is what I was practicing, and modeling. That's it. So now, again, we come here and everybody's just weightlifting. Everything's about fitness. And at 14, that's where I started weightlifting. I started weightlifting to cope with my emotional side, to cope with the understanding that not only am I I'm working to help my mother, but I'm also coping with the stress of my health. How am I feeling? The stress of, I don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow because we're illegal. Like, I have to understand that we're going to be okay no matter what. So detaching from everything and avoiding connection, right? So much unraveling as a kid. I had suicidal thoughts. I was severely in depression. And that all comes from avoiding your own emotion. That thought where I can't allow my mom to see me feeling like this because she's already having so much in her plate. I have to step it up. I have to step it up. And it's always avoidance. And let's just survive. And I'm going to continue if you let me.
Yeah.
So
No, no.
um, I started weightlifting at 14 years old, and that just gave me some sort of energy. To me, weightlifting become my outlet to escape my reality. It's exactly how I felt if you go to a movie theater and you forget your real world.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me when I started the gym.
No, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
It was a place where I forgot my chaos. It was a place where I forgot my reality, and I just was so in tune and quiet, and I became so obsessed with the gym. Still not eating enough. I was training 7 days out of the week. I was just going every single day after work. I would go to school, go to work, and go to the gym. And I repeat that every single day. And at that time, I meet somebody in the gym. And mind you, I'm still going through epilepsy. I'm still having all of this disorder. I'm just learning to cope with it. I'm accepting it. Got to a point that whenever I used to have the seizure at school, I would just tell people around me, hey, it's okay. It's going to pass. Just let it be. Don't call 911 because we have so many bills, hospital bills that we
Oh,
can't
yeah.
afford. Just please. And I will beg everyone around me to not call 911. Let me be. I'll have it. And then I'll come back and everything's going to be fine. It got to that point that I started putting my circle around me to be accepting of this is normal, right? Which is crazy. It's mind blowing. So fast forward, I meet someone in the gym and we start working out. She's like, wow, you're here every day. You don't compete. I was very thin. It's like, compete? What is that? She's like, yeah, fitness competitions. And at that time, I'm getting into the beauty industry. I was doing hair and makeup. And I didn't do it for fitness. I never knew about it. So when she started saying, hey, can you just do my makeup for my show? I'm like, okay, what show is this? So
Yeah.
I go, and the first thing I see is all these women look insane. And I'm like, I work out every day. Why don't I look like this? Like, what is this? So it opened up again my eyes to a different world that I never knew it existed. So I asked her, what do I need to do to join? She's like, you just got you're training, you just have to eat. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, I'm like, I have to eat? What do you mean I have to eat? She's like, yeah, you have to eat chicken, you have to eat portion meals. And I'm like, I hate that. Why would I need to eat that? She was like, no, if you want, you can blend it and drink it. I'm like, you drink your meat? Oh my God. So I said, whatever, I'm going to do it. I'm all for it. So on top of that, I wanted more challenge because what I had in my life wasn't enough. Again, this is my mechanism of escape. Let me keep busy so I can continue coping with life, right? Suppress depression, anxiety, emotions, and health. And let me find other things where I can continue numbing, right? So now I go ahead and I ask for her diet. Mind you, she's like 5 feet tall. I'm 5'6". Right? I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Follow the meal plan that she does exactly to a T. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to Vegas. I'm gonna go to Vegas and compete in a bodybuilding show. She's like, do you know anybody in Vegas? I'm like, no, that's the biggest one, right? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. So I started having fun with the sport. And I started placing really good because I love being on stage. I was a dancer before. So
Hmm.
I had this charisma. I was so excited. I would look at everybody behind the stage. And I'm like, wow, you ate that crap too? Like you ate the same food?
Yeah.
Bro, yes. I felt so honored because it was such a struggle to eat food. It was first, it wasn't made for me. It's not a nutrition specific for me. It was foods that I was avoiding my entire life, and I was feeling still sick. Like the food actually made me really sick. And I was just like, this is what you're supposed to feel. This is how it is, What do you mean? Like if I want to look like that, I'm supposed to do this. So after that show, I started getting views, right? I didn't have social media, but I started getting people like coaches see me, like, oh, here, I'll coach you. So I'm like, okay, I'll join a coach. And that's when the steroids started to happen.
Mm.
At the minute they say you want to do this, and if you want to do it right, you got to take this, and you got to take a little bit of Anavar, a little bit of Clen, and maybe a little bit of Winstrol, maybe Test. Testosterone is the one that I never did because I was so afraid of injections.
Mm,
But everything that had to do with pill form, I would just ignore again my health because the physical, what I saw was so much more important.
yeah.
My seizures stopped after I started numbing even more, right? So then I was like, okay, maybe I'm healing. My seizures stopped. I didn't go through the doctor anymore. I didn't get checked. Nobody ever asked me to check my hormones. Nobody even cared. This is the saddest part in the industry. Nobody cared about how I was feeling internally.
Hmm.
Everybody just cares about how you look on stage.
Yep.
Even before, not even after, because afterwards you gain all this weight of inflammation. I remember after my first show where I was with a coach, in 2 weeks, I gained 20 pounds. In 2 weeks, talking to a person that has never, I've been skinny my entire life. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, I start blowing up. I have this little hunger monster where I couldn't stop binging. I'm like, oh, food, food. I'm like, what is this? Who is she? Who is she? I never even liked food. So
Yeah.
that's when my research began about nutrition and women's hormones because of the way I was feeling. Not only was I not eating crappy food, I wasn't eating pizza, burger, I wasn't eating none of that. I was eating my same exact meals, but maybe I'll add a salad, maybe I'll add some juice, maybe I'll start eating fruits. I started blowing up for things that you think they're healthy. So then I was very curious. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna start studying personal training, human anatomy, nutrition, hormones. I started studying the brain because my mental health kept getting worse,
Mm,
severely worse. Not only was I more depressed, but now I'm in a place where I'm putting myself in a situation where you need to judge me by the way I look. How mind blowing is that? So I'm defeating, like, it's the whole purpose of it. I'm avoiding the mirror because I can't even look at myself because I have body dysmorphia and all these illnesses. But then I step on a stage for somebody to judge my worth. And I'm like, why am I even doing this? And I did that for 10 years. Which
yeah.
is the craziest part, like, long story short, pretty much I did that for 10 years until that could be the next question, how I woke up, but until something severely hit me and I needed to get out of it.
Yeah. And just, I was looking at a few things on your Instagram. So I was going to show one of them. I believe you were 18 in this shot, right?
No, on that shot, I was actually competing in Arnold. I was
Okay. Okay.
23, 24. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So that was a little bit later then. Okay.
Yeah. Look,
Got
that
it.
was also, that was Olympia, I think it was.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. Cause I was looking at, this one here too. So I think too, like for people, cause these are,
Oh, that's when that one on the left was when I was competing for WBFF, which is another competition league where you can be like a fitness model, fashion show type of way. And my body stopped responding. I was 27 in that picture, 26, 27. And I was taking so much Winstrol, like severely intense, that not only were my joints were hurting, but my body started collapsing. I just
mm,
started gaining even more weight. My joints were hurting, but my body fat was growing. And then on the right, that's me right now.
yeah. No, and there's a couple just for people out there too, just different ones from different diets and progression that you shared, which, um, you know, appreciate you kind of, like I said, putting some of those differences out there so people can kind of see your journey and, what you work through, like I said, is good. And as you mentioned earlier, like, people see the 4K camera or whatever and the clear images and, the current state, but the journey itself to get there, um, there's a lot of lessons to be learned there and a lot of application that you can apply, when working with these women. So, and how long has it been since you've been out of competing now?
So I stopped competing at the age of 28. That's when I retired and I became vegan. I'm 33 now. Um, those, and I also like to share a few factors, is like I also went through this belief of a quick fix, of getting the magic pill, even though I put in a lot of work. Because when you think about steroids, immediately people think that the steroid or the magic pill is going to get you there on its own, and it's not. Even with the magic pill and the things that you take to get there, it needs a lot of work. I was, where you see me there, I was training 3 times a day. I was working 2 jobs, still growing a business, supporting my entire family. Like, the last thing I would do was sleep. I would wake up at 3 in the morning to be in the gym at 4 in the morning. I would
Mm.
train for 2 hours. Then I'll go back in my lunchtime. Then I go back at night. So even though everybody searches this quick fix, is never actually a quick fix. What it's actually doing is you're poisoning your body, because you don't realize that it didn't take you overnight to get where you are right now. Like, if you calculate people that are right now overweight or ill, it took you how many years? And then you expect it in a month to be gone. It's very silly to me,
Yeah.
right? So it's like that part of us where, again, be more cautious. And when I was doing it, I show my story because I understand where you're coming from. I wanted the quick fix. I wanted the results right away, even though I put so much work, but I wanted something that was unrealistic. I
Yeah.
wanted something that was not sustainable. And I was willing to trade off my health in order to look a certain way, until my body said enough, until no longer I looked away that I was paying the price for. That's when I'm like, okay, you know what? It got to me because I was coaching women since 2015, 2016. I was coaching women in person. That was one of my businesses. And I was training people in person. And when I started giving programs in 2019, when I went online, I was very clear with the goal. I never wanted anybody to take anything. I was never receiving. I actually turned away a lot of clients that they only wanted a quick fix, because it wasn't what I was willing to do.
Yeah.
Even though I was doing it, which is the craziest thing. That's when I had to look myself in the mirror. I'm like, you're changing these women's life. You're giving them better health, but yet you cannot drink out of your own cup.
Hmm.
My rude awakening began at that specific place in my life. 2019, I had an ex partner that he was my coach and he committed suicide.
Mm.
And from the outside, he had it all, right? He had the business, he had the supplement line, he was a genius, he was creating formulas, he looked great, he was coaching people, million followers on Instagram, everybody loved him.
Yeah.
But internally, he was suffering a lot. And that person taught me so much about what I coach right now, that I am so grateful for that. And also the part where the mental state came into play in my coaching, because we all focus on the physical body, but we
Hmm.
have the mental. We have 3 bodies: the physical, the emotional, which is the soul, and the mind. And
Hmm.
they all go cohesive, because if you think you can't do something, then you won't. And if
Right.
you feel terrible, you won't either. So when
Right.
we focus about action, taking action, just go, 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 you're forgetting about the other 2 factors that makes a huge role in your life, which is who you sleep at and listen to 24/7.
Right.
This one right here. Where is this one saying? What is she talking about? What's her view? What's her sabotage? So when this happened in my life, it shook me and I had to take severe step back, because this person not only was teaching me so much in my life, but also what he was unwilling to go into, which was the mental health and the emotional side, is what led him to that, right?
Yeah.
So I had to question myself, why was I doing the things that I was doing? Where is my faith? Where am I with God, with my spirituality? Where am I with my emotions? Where am I with my mental state? Because he was also showing me a part of me, a
Hmm.
part of me where I did have suicidal thoughts in the past. I did try it. I also suffer from depression. I was abused. I had so many traumas in my life that I kept pretending it was okay.
Hmm.
Kept pretending that nothing was wrong. And when that happened in my life, it tore me apart because I am here doing again the outer work, the physical, the studying, the teaching, the coaching. But what happens internally?
Hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, why we're here? We're here serving others to teach them not only health, but to also teach them how to become better. But yeah, we can't take that on ourselves. So that's when my life switched
Yeah.
big time.
How long after the passing did you start Rise, or was Rise already up and running at that time, or?
No, Rise started 2 years, 2021. Rise started at the end of 2020, 2021. Um, I started Rise because I had a huge awakening. And for me, Rise means rebirth.
Hmm.
You're rising from what it was to who you want to be and who you truly are, and the question for me was always, who am I? Not the person that I was taught to be, not who I was taught to like or project. Who am I really? What do I like? What do I believe? And I started tattooing myself. I think I was 30 years old because I started shifting. I cut my hair. All of these physical changes, meaning my hair, I started becoming slimmer. I stopped taking steroids. I started taking care of my health. It was the work that I was doing inwards. When people started seeing me, they're like, "Oh my God, why are you changing? You're changing so much." Like if you see that old picture, you pretty much, if you see it rapidly, you'd be like, "That's not you."
No, I had to look twice, a couple times. Yeah. Yeah.
And the only difference that happened, which was the severe difference for me, is I rise. It
Right.
was a huge rebirth for me. I had to let go of my old belief. I had to relearn something new. I had to go to whatever it is uncomfortable, what I was numbing. I spent a lot of time with beautiful healing masters that they live in the jungle that people don't even know about. These indigenous people that take nature as medicine, the people that take inner work as their sole purpose. And I started going there. I didn't go to a pharmacy. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't go to get prescriptions for my mood and my anxiety and my depression. I went inwards. And that's when I started realizing that what I was numbing was slowly killing me, was slowly taking away what I was here to do. So I had no other choice but to embrace it, to see through it. Why was my life this way? Why not? It's how we see it and how we turn it around. So when I understood that point in my life, I understood that's when Rice came about. I was actually in a healing ceremony, and immediately the word came into my mind, and I said, okay, this is what my purpose is. My
Hmm.
purpose is to connect with people that desire a deeper healing, because the body's going to show it. The body's a pure reflection on how you are inside. And if you're outside is something that you cannot connect with, that you don't like, that you feel really terrible in all essence, not just like the physical terms of bloating, fatigue, no energy, that's your body screaming
Right.
that you're not okay. The body needs to some sort of way be able to speak to you. It's just we are so used to suppressing and we normalize feeling terrible, which is the saddest part. We normalize not feeling like ourselves. We don't even know what that feels like, right? So
Right.
when I started shifting and implementing all the tools that I relearned with science backed, because I really, this again, I study all this for me. I never thought in a million years I'll be coaching this. I never thought.
Yeah.
I just really severely was seeking myself for help. That was my way of coping with life. It was through research. And thanks to that, now I'm able to walk women through that same path. Maybe in the future I'll open it for men, but right now I lean more into women because we're the ones that are also catering to it all. Meaning we're holding everything together. We're holding a household, we're holding the men, we both need men and women, we're not equals, we're not meant to be equals, men have your role, women have your role. It's polarity, it's how we were designed. That's a different subject. But the more that we on to the women to not only see themselves, but the power within them and through the healing, being vulnerable and allowing themselves to be women and knowing that that's so pure and strong, then that's a path to healing, you know? So when I started implementing that in my coaching, not only were women severely shifting, severely transforming their bodies, but they transformed their life in a way that now they're never going backwards. You know,
Mhm.
I always have this saying that once you see, you cannot unsee. Because what all we're missing is that clarity into where is this coming from, right?
Yeah.
So it's been such a beautiful journey. This year I opened Rise Community, which is a platform where I host. It's free, but it's there to serve people with a lot of information about gut health, mindset, peptides, supplements, nutrition, everything overall. That just opened a few months ago. I opened also Rise app, which is a platform where you're also healing with all the bodies. So you have mental, which is the mindset. We do meditation, sound healing. We have the physical, which is a fitness, the training, the yoga, you know, and then we the emotions. So I host coaching calls so they're able to cope with what they're doing every single day, how we are acknowledging how we feel and not ignoring them, not eating our emotions. We are feeling them. You know, it's a different relationship to food and to the mirror.
Yeah, and I think what's really, interesting, I think for everybody out there to process, and if we categorize coaches a little bit, or people guiding people through like these positive, healthy lifestyle changes, I come to mind, and I want to tie this into what I hear you saying, but I kind of see generally three different type of coaches. The one where it's, hey, look at me, I've been on the stage, the big show, I know how to look this way, come see me, I'll help you look this way. That's one category. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just one category. Then there's another one. It's like, hey, I'm functional health coach ish, if you will, where I'm going to do some very challenging testing to even interpret, let alone come up with a protocol that's going to help somebody. Like, that's a barrier. And
Mhm.
then over here, you kind of have the mindset, therapeutic, help you manage stress. And I have a good friend of mine that she runs a faith-based coaching service. She used to be a trainer and all that, and she totally shifted that. Nothing wrong with that, right? She doesn't really hit the first one as much. But what I hear you saying, and I think is really unique for people to listen, and we all love the word free, right? So definitely people to check out the Rise community
Yeah.
to just see like, hey, I want to check this out more. But there's all three, it sounds like, which is very challenging to do, because you easily could have said, hey, I've been on the Arnold, I've been on the Olympia. For those who don't know, these are the top like women's physique stages in the world to be on. I've been on there, been there, done that.
Mhm.
You could have stopped there, right? You could have just said, built a pretty good business and brand around that, but you decided to take the hard path and add these other layers, which I think is really commendable, but also for those listening in. And another reason why, we wanted to have you on the podcast, because we like that, just kind of bringing it to light, that dynamic, I think, is so important for people to look at. And I'm curious to like, where did the the detailed functional part, because I know from getting to know you a little bit, you're very big on, hey, if I'm gonna work with you, I need blood work, I need to see your gut health, I need to see these things. When in your prescription, if you will, or your program implementation, did that happen? Why did it happen that way? And can you kind of walk us through like where that fits into everything you're describing?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And it's important because when I shifted that was when I stopped competing and I did a severe panels of blood work where I paid out of pocket because I didn't have any health insurance. And I just wanted to understand what was happening deep in my roots. And no coach ever asked me for this. No
Mhm.
coach, you know? So I was like, okay, there's something that I'm not seeing. And I hate the fact that when people look at me, they immediately assume that I'm healthy just because I look a certain way. We go back to how we look or like how we see, right?
Right.
So when I do this panel, I have lupus, PCOS,
Mm.
IBS, amongst so much disorder in my hormonal function as a woman that I'm like, I went to a doctor. I'm like, I have lupus. He's like, oh, but you don't look like that. I mean, you look fine. And immediately I got so angry inside because it triggered me to the part of everybody judges how somebody looks instead of understanding how the deeper is. It's not so much about like, oh, you look good, you probably know what you're doing.
Yeah.
No, there's so many people that look amazing and they have no clue what they're doing, right? So when I went through that shift, I was 28 years old. That's when I started testing everybody. And it became such a crucial part of the journey because I no longer wanted to test this if it works. Oh, here, do this diet and let's see if it works. Hey, do this diet and see if it works. Before, I was getting all these people into results physically, right? And then when I started seeing my work, when I let them go, some of them started rebounding. And I'm like, wait a minute, why are people rebounding? Why are they going backwards? And that's when the inner work became more important than the outer work. Means I need to understand what's happening in the root. How's your thyroid levels? How's your estrogen, testosterone? How are your hormones functioning, right? How's your gut? What foods can you process? What can you not process? So I started going more into the autoimmune disease
Mhm.
because again, I was faced with it. Again and again, I was faced with I would say challenges that allow me to open up a door to a world that I didn't know about. So then I started going more deeper into, okay, how would I do any source of plan if I don't know how you're doing internally? It's like I'm guiding you blindly.
Right.
How am I gonna know what's gonna work if I don't know how your digestion is? I don't know how your hormones are. How many
Right.
people have hormonal issues? Most women nowadays have hormonal issues. 80% of autoimmune disease happens to women. And you're just seeking a 30-day challenge and expect it to work, or
Right.
just this program. And that to me just became so like, oh my God, how do you not see this? Again, I cannot unsee it. So when I went through that path, everybody, hey, if you cannot get tested, then I'm sorry, I cannot coach you, because
Yeah.
I needed to be not only true to me, but I had to be very brutally honest to people because it's not about the money. I believe if you're in service and if, I mean, you can make money in whatever you want in life,
Sure.
money's always around. But if you always navigate life searching for money, you're never going to be in tune with what you're meant to do. So I am here because I have a deeper purpose into this healing, because I've been there and I live it and I breathe it, right? So for me, was not even an option. It's if you want my guidance, I need to understand how you are internally so we can actually obtain results, but you can keep them. It's not just getting there. We can all get there. I mean, how many people get there in 3 months? It's not getting there. It's how
Right.
do we keep it, and how do we understand why you're having all these symptoms. So that's when everything started shifting for me, and from that point on, all my girls needs to be tested, all of them. And I test everybody between every 3 to 4 months because we're navigating with intention. I'm not just changing your physical body, but we're also working on healing what's on the roots, healing
Yeah.
internally, because that then if your gut is good, your entire body runs smoothly. Your mental health is better, your skin is better, right? Your physical body is better. And now you start owning a different relationship to food, into understanding what nutrients are. You're not just eating something because I told you to. You're eating something because you know the meaning and the intention behind it. Then it no longer becomes a diet, it becomes a form of life. And that's where lifestyle comes into play. People preach, make it your lifestyle, but tell that to someone that never has had that lifestyle, or
Right.
it was never taught to them. I had a severe eating disorder, right? How many people have distortion with not only the mirror, but with food? They don't even understand how they got there. They've been eating their emotions because it's exactly what we were taught to be. We were taught that if you're sad, here's food. Love, family, food. Let's go celebrate, food. Every emotion you carried, you paired it with food. So then you're telling your brain, if I feel this, let me eat, right? So it's like, how you're going to tell somebody make it a lifestyle when they've never been taught what that lifestyle is like. You can't just give someone something and say, good luck, have fun, this is exactly how to do it, and pretend it to stick or to even be taught. So my whole perception shifted significantly when I started understanding the root of causes, right? The relationships itself, which it also comes from an emotion. Everything. You know how many people I talk to and they're like, "Oh my God, I enjoy pasta so much because it reminds me when my grandmother used to cook for me at the table. And that was the only time I got to see my cousins." So immediately, eating this source of plate of food and always having pasta at the table became a must because
Right.
she's trying to connect with the same emotion that made her happy when she was a child. So that's where everything comes into play, right? And obviously, your hormones are your main functions for your like you're human, like you need to be function. That's your engine of your car. So everything shifted for me for testing when I got to see myself in a mirror in a position that I've never seen myself before. For me, I had lupus in a very early stage. So I've read so much about healing with nutrition. um so I gave myself that task for the first time in my life. I said I'm going to trust what I've studied and I'm going to practice it. I have nothing else to lose. Like I reached my worst point in my life. Not only did I look terrible in my eyes, but I was feeling extremely bad. So for me, I had no other choice but to try something that I've never tried, which it was my expertise and what I've been studying for years and the new study that I was embarking. So that's when my life changed, literally changed.
Yeah, no, I think, there's a couple things you mentioned there I wanted to bring up, and I had a follow up for you. But because you mentioned, I think for people out there, they're like, well, that's the way we do it in our family. Like I want to tackle that one for a minute, where it's like we celebrate with food, and I've saw two different families. One, there was all sweets and cakes and desserts. Everything was very, very high calorie, small food, like high fatty, And another was like there's a fruit play, and there's some different yogurts are out, and there's maybe a blueberry pie, right? Is like the extent of it. So it's like you can still, I think it's just, it's one of the things that someone I know very close started to actually change their family dynamic. It took 5, 6 years because they
Mhm.
kept bringing dishes that were more generally healthy but still tasted good to show everybody like, hey, we can do this. I think it's just two things came to mind when you talk about. Number one is if you're in a position right now where that's just your normal and that's your life, like that's okay. Start with baby steps. It's just,
Mhm.
and don't think you can go there and tough it out, because you're setting yourself up for failure in a lot of cases. Like even you and I that, we grew up in this stuff and formally educated in it and dedicate our lives to it, we are still grabbing the junk if we're that hungry at a party. Like it's still going to happen. So you got to have, other plans when you come there. But I also think one of the things you mentioned was about testing, and you mentioned lupus and autoimmune, and 80% of autoimmune is in women, and all these other underlying issues. Like one of the things and I don't know if I just don't see it in guys. That's anecdotal, right? Like, I don't know. I guess I can maybe park guys over here, but I see it a lot in women, to where it's the shame game. It's the, I can't do it. It works for Susie, but not for me. It worked for my husband, not for me. It's like, well, first off, your husband's totally different biology, like completely different person. Like, let's just set him over to the side. But I know it's frustrating, but I get it. You got to set that over there. It's a whole nother podcast on the endocrine of men versus women and all that. But also there's this hope that comes in testing and pausing and saying, okay, I would love it if I could just
Mhm.
eat like that and be fine. But the
Mhm.
reality is you got to take a month, 3 months, 6 months, depending on the severity of your whatever comes from these assessments you're doing. Clean that up first. While you're cleaning it up, you're going to see some benefits. But
Mhm.
I totally agree, because I've seen it so many time and time again with women, where you look at their panels, you look at their gut health, and you're like, you don't have the raw materials to work
Mhm.
out. Like you don't, no wonder. Like, and you're over here, you're depressed, you don't have the activity, you're overweight, you're shaming yourself, you fail at your program because you can't stick to it. Like you just can't. Like you don't have the raw materials to be successful.
Yeah.
And then the shame cycle continues and continues and continues. You wake up, you're 80 pounds overweight. You went from 30 pounds overweight to 5 years, now you're 80, 90,
Yeah.
and you're ready to give up. And I think that's one of the things I really hope to get out of the podcast, is having so many different people in different disciplines to show like there's more to the picture.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to pause and take a deeper dive. And, you know, with all that, I'm curious to like, what, if you had to identify, and I know we're kind of painting with a broad brush here, but if you had to identify maybe anywhere from like 1 to 3 kind of topics or categories, if you will, of like women coming to you, what are some of the myths or lies maybe that they've been either telling themselves or maybe misinterpreting that they're coming to you with, that's a barrier to them being successful like on this journey? Is there anything that comes to mind when you think of that?
One, it runs in my family. I think that's one of the biggest ones that I speak about. Is I come to women come to me and they're like, "Oh, my all my family's heavy, so this runs in my family." Or hey, I have diabetes because it runs in my family, but they only see that point, right?
Yeah.
They see the point of the excused behavior because it runs in the family, but they don't look in the mirror and say, what have I been doing that prones to me carrying that, right? How did I end up being overweight? What am I hiding? So you mentioned the pasta dish, right? The whole eating. I always say it's not the pasta, it's not the cake, it's not that, it's your relationship to it. That's why
Right.
I brought an emotion behind the food, is because all these people, they blame it on that, right? I eat pasta every week. I'm Italian, and I'm great. I just did my blood work with you guys. My Allison was like, I've never seen such a perfect blood work. And I'm vegan and I eat tons of carbs and I have 14% body fat and I take care of my health, right? Diabetes runs in my family, cancer runs in my family, right? Every like there's so many factors that I could say runs in my family, but it doesn't, right? I always say that genetics loads the gun, but
Right.
your habits pull the
The
trigger,
trigger. Yeah. Great
right? So
point.
it's very important to own responsibility, because the whole belief system that I just grew up like this and this is what I was taught to be and this runs in my family, this is just a belief that you allowed it to become an excuse for your current behaviors. There's a point in our life that we really not only have to look in the mirror, but we have to be brutally honest with ourselves and accept the really not so great truth, and own responsibility for our behavior as what we're coming into play. We can't just sit in life and say it was because of this that I am this way. And no, it's because you're choosing that every single day. Now you have a choice to make every single day, is either to continue to let that stop you or to seek for help because you don't know how to, which is incredible. We're not saying that you need to understand how your body works. There's so many tools that you can implement, and people listen to this, we have so many tools that we can help you and guide you through the journey that you're not aware of. You don't need to know it all. You just need to ask for help, seek for
Right.
help, and that's more than enough. But I think it's so important that when women come to me and they blame, and I speak about this so often, so people know that I love carbs. I love every macronutrient is necessary for your human to work, like for you to produce and have clarity and obtain knowledge. And if you study more about the brain, how many calories the brain consumes and expends, you understand that nutrition is not just what you eat, but how you eat, right? So um I believe every kind of food is great. There's no bad food. It's just how you see it and how your body receives it. So that's one of the things that I hear a lot, is like it runs in my family or I just grew up this way.
Yeah.
Like if it's like a life sentence.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good one. I think, again, it's guarding your mind and your heart, if you will, when you're going down that thought process too, that, it shouldn't be, don't let it slip into like the shame and guilt game, but it's more, oh, I can control this, right? Like, I think a lot of people can misinterpret some of those messages, or even on the male side, there's a very well-known Navy SEAL educator. He has a book out called Extreme Ownership. And reading that, like when I was reading it, I remember like 3/4 of the way through, I was getting depressed. Like, man, I suck. Like, I own everything. I'm such a bad failure. But towards the end, he gets into shifting where he's saying, no, 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 no. Now that you've taken ownership,
Mhm.
now you can take ownership in solving it. So it's that step one. Like, you have to, like, you got to hold it, and then you can go and do something. And it's so much more empowering, because if you're always in that state of mind, you're never in, as I like to refer to it as like that victim mentality. Like the
Mm.
old thing we'd say in sports is, or in, you hear this with motivational speakers, and it's cheesy, but you get the concept where
Yeah,
it's like, are you going to happen to your day, or do you,
yeah,
do you happen to your day, or does your day happen to you? Right. It's like that same mindset is like,
yeah.
we're going to set the tone of what we're going to do today. Like
Mm.
we're going to instill this, and you're going to be obstacles and bumps, but then you shift. And, if you can kind of take that mindset, there's no successes or failures in life. It's just outcomes. And either one you adjust after, regardless of what the outcome was. Some you do more of because it works, some you do less of because it's not working. So I love the fact that you're kind of diving into, the mindset and getting into that. And I'm curious, like, where does that take place? Because it's something I haven't done coaching for a while, but when I used to, I didn't have the skills, and I certainly didn't put this in my programming,
Mm.
what you're describing. Where does this take place, these types of tools, mental tools, reframing? Is it in your you're like I'm it may not be called a webinar, but I'm like thinking of like a webinar or group calls? Is it through, like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I do have individual calls for the people that need it the most. And then one that private touch, and I do have group calls, but I created a group call that's very small. I split my groups between 5, the most 10 in a group, because the whole work that we're doing is inner work. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, sometimes when you put women in a group, they're more susceptible to open up and to be more vulnerable, as we're hearing everybody else's story. You can relate, you can resonate, you can understand, and then you can connect the dots by listening to that. So I always did coaching calls, even when I started coaching back in the day. But the coaching calls were, in a way, hey, how's your training? Hey, how's your nutrition? And that was it.
Yeah.
And when I started breaking through to this new path of real transformation, because not only owning ownership, but that you just said something so crucial is accepting that it is your responsibility, and that most of the choices that you have made is come from you, not from anybody else, right? So that part of acceptance is how we welcome it and what perception we own into it, right? Because I believe everything is how we see them, right? So if we start embracing new habits, the only way to change something from the past is entering a new one and understanding why, right? So in these coaching calls, we go severely into the mindset and an emotional state, because that determines, if I ask you about your week, and this is a weekly coaching call, which it has been extremely effective for all my clients, is that checking in with yourself. It's like, okay, I'm going to take a minute to just breathe and recap, looking backwards, because I can understand. That's the only way to understand, is connecting the dots, looking backwards. So I'm going to sit and we're going to talk about your day. How do you feel? This is a severe question that nobody sits and really sits with it. How do I feel? Right? How do I
Yeah.
really feel? Not how I see it, not how I responded. How do I feel deep down inside?
Right.
So these coaching calls have been so, I mean, so inspiring, but most of it transformational to people, that I have created more because I see the outcome behind it. I see the impact. I've also have done my studies. What if I don't do coaching calls? People tend to fall off programs, right? Because
Yeah.
we go back to the same thing. We go back to, like, you give someone a program and you don't follow up. We might say, hey, I just need accountability. But in reality, you do want somebody holding your hand, not because you can't do it on your own, but because the path of doing it on your own, you don't stop and smell the roses. Like, you don't stop and really acknowledge how great have you done? How
Yeah.
well have you coped with your week? How were you able to manage that? And that's, it's not only about did you make it to the gym, but is, wow, you had so many other wins. You made it to the gym 3 times this week. That's amazing. You started something new. That's incredible. So it's also for somebody there to acknowledge your path, to see and to give you that reassurance that this is the right way to go. And that itself gives so much more support to women and to anyone to continue the path, not because I have to, but because I see through it. You know, it's my choice of seeing myself through it. Who am I becoming?
Yeah.
So I love my calls. I feel like that's everything for my coaching, the calls.
Well, and there's a lot of different belief systems out there, and I want to be respectful of other people's values and beliefs, but it specifically. I didn't mean to say "but" after saying that, because then it sounds like I'm going to contradict myself. But I do want to say, like, I've seen it a lot, even in men's health, where you know in our household, like, we have a strong faith, and we're Christian, and one of the biggest things to talk about in the church, and in our some of the Christian organizations I work with, is about the biggest lie is that you have to be alone, or you should do it on your own, or you should be ashamed. And regardless, let's say you have no faith and no belief, you believe that's all nonsense. That's like, okay, let's set that over here. That's not what my statement's about. It's more about community and the importance of coming together with people, exposing yourself, because I see it in it, meaning like letting out the dirty stuff that you've struggled with, or getting it out there, as silly as you think it is, because then you'll say, oh, you feel the same. Oh, you had the same thing. Oh, you have. Oh, okay. And then you and I think I would have just imagined, I'm sure you could share this, but they're walking away. Maybe they're texting or talking after together, and you're kind of building this positive movement amongst your clients. And, I think that's a really, really cool thing, because we see it in sports. We see it in the school system. I know I do, because I volunteer with our younger kids football program, and I see it, in the confidence and the sharing and the friendships. But then we get in an adult world, and we just go, yeah, I'm an adult now. I can't share any of this. I should just take on work on, life of my own. It's like, okay, you had, a tragic event or two in your family. You had 3 little ones you added to your household, which they don't come with a owner's manual, work changes, significant other changes where they had a health scare, or they had a big major work crisis. These are things that we can, print off any diet plan we want, but the reality is the body's response internally, even if you're tough, right? Like, it's going to manifest other ways. Like, I'm definitely a meathead when it comes to my emotions, to where it always manifests physically with me. I never show it. I'm pretty even. Everyone's like, you're so even keel, you're chill. Like, man, that person was hot and they were yelling and cussing, and you were able to de-escalate and blah, blah. And it's like, they think I'm great. And it's like, it's not, because if I don't unload that
Yeah.
or work on that,
Yeah.
I'm a week later going to have sleep issues for a week, or I'm going to have some other manifestation of my stresses. So I only share that because, for people that maybe they see, oh, I see this guy in his podcast all the time, or this is what he does. It's like, hey, I got the same issues, and I got the same, hard-headed mentality sometimes, where I forget to reach out and kind of build that community. And that's something that I think is a really great takeaway, especially for, even other coaches that might be listening, or people seeking out a coach. Is, of course, you'd be a great resource, but perhaps maybe even they're working with someone that they're really comfortable with, and just maybe you share that with your coach, or the person overseeing your health journey.
Yeah. No, I agree. And thank you for sharing, because we all came here as a tribe. We're meant to be with people. If you look at the studies, it shows that whenever you're feeling some sort of way, go talk to a stranger, go say hello, go say thank you. Why? Because it boosts yourselves, right? So at the end of the day, sharing and having a safe space where you're able to just be open minded and speak your emotions. And I think it's way harder for men because of how you guys also were brought up. You don't speak your emotions. You're tough. You got to just, but if there was a community of men where you guys can come together and just be brutally honest without any judgment and just feel safe, your outcome in life is greater, because you're no longer projecting. Like, when people are just so angry for no reason, it's not at you, it's at them. It's a pure reflection of all the stuff that they've been swallowing for years that has become a poison. And it can show in their weight, it shows in their health, it shows in their mental state, and it shows in how they carry themselves, because everybody just projects how they are internally. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to share. Whoever you're with and whatever you are doing, seek for that community where you can hold space for someone, or somebody can hold space for you, because it is so important. It all shows up in the body. And you're so right. If you don't let it out, it's gonna show up some other way, you know? And Alzheimer's, when I'm gonna bring this up, because Alzheimer's is one of the earliest, let's say, illness, right, that came about in this generation. And when you actually go deeper into Alzheimer's, it also comes from all those things that you suppress for years, you know?
Mm,
Yes, food, yes, hormones, yes. But where does it stem from? It stems from
right.
so much taking in, you know, avoidance, not speaking my truth, not letting emotion, just suppressing, suppressing, suppressing. So if you can take something also away from this podcast, which everything has been great, take it all. But look at yourself in the mirror. And I always have this analogy, like if you look in the mirror and your eye is dirty, do you clean the mirror or do you clean your eye? So
Mm,
most people start cleaning the mirror. They want to change everything outside of them. They want to control people. They want to move. They want to do everything outside, thinking that's gonna be it. That's what's gonna make me happy. That's what's gonna make me healthy. What's gonna make me feel successful. All of these. This is what's gonna do it for me. Until you realize that your eye's still dirty. The only way to clean it is going here. Is going
yeah.
inwards, seeing yourself inside, and how can I shift? How can I, what am I doing that's no longer serving me, you know? So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of a couple questions I want to make sure I get in. You have a lot of good quotes and a good, your own description, like a transition of philosophy in life, and I think a lot of people listening would say it's a good one or productive one. So I'm curious, if for those out there listening, are there maybe your top 3 books or references that you've kind of worked on this, right? We all have like, oh, your glutes look great. What's your favorite machine, right? And it's like, well, I do this. And then it's like, well, your arms look great. Well, I do this. Well, how do you, get that? What are some of the tools you've used, either books or things you've exposed yourself to? I'd be curious if you could maybe walk us through that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love books. One that comes rapidly into mind, I love Joe Dispenza. He talks about how rewiring your brain. And he has great books. He has Supernatural, and he has one of, I think is forgetting who you were. It's something about rewiring yourself. I have to look for the name and really, I feel so bad.
I'm sure I can find. What was the first one again?
So Supernatural.
Supernatural. Okay.
Then I have one that The Mountain Is You is absolutely incredible. Let me see. The Mountain Is
Joe,
You is,
is it Joe Dispenza? Sorry,
oh, yeah, Joe Dispenza.
I got it right here. So I'll
Here
show
it is.
everybody.
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That book severely
Is
breaking
this
that one. Supernatural is great. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself was one of my biggest shifts, because we go back to old behaviors. You know, it's an insane book, and I love how he starts with the science base, but then he makes it into terms where we can all understand.
awesome?
um, those two are great. I have so many development books too, like Think and Grow Rich. I think it's a
Oh yeah.
great one, because it also shows you the mental power, you know, of what happens in our mind. We actually create it in reality, and
Yep.
most of us continue living the past. Again, victim mentality, or anything that happened to you, but you continue recreating that in your present moment. So that is a great one. Hmm.
Awesome. What about any other daily practices? Like what do you do either in a week or a day? What are things you do for, just health, staying grounded? You clearly on your Instagram, you're busy, you got your business, you're creating a lot of really good content that certainly isn't definitely takes time to shoot. You got clients, you got calls, you're on podcasts. Like what is you got your dogs, right? Got the little ones.
Life, yeah, I have everything going on. But I think something that I promised myself is taking some time in the morning to really understand how I'm feeling. You know, how am I feeling right now? My physical body, my mind, right? Not only my goals, but my gratitude. I feel that in order for my day to go well, I need to start with being grateful. grateful for what is, grateful for what I currently have and what I don't have, grateful for it all. So definitely practice gratitude in the morning. I don't meditate in the morning because I work out super early. So I just go out and work out. I tend to meditate either in the afternoon or at night. For me, meditation is like my pickup coffee, I would say.
Okay.
It centers me back into alignment. It calms my mental state. At first, I didn't know how to meditate, so I started doing guided meditations a lot. And then I started listening to high frequency music, and that just really did it for me. So for whoever person has been trying to meditate, just start with guided meditation. It's beautiful. At first, you're gonna fall asleep, and then you're gonna work your way into actually staying in stillness. But that also has helped me severely with my anxiety. I'm a very hyperactive person. That's why I tend to do five things at once.
Hmm.
So I wanted to really own into just stillness. Since I was little, I was never really still. So I had to really practice that and continue to practice that in order to become a new habit. Like I can't just reframe myself from things that I've been doing for so long if I don't practice something new and continue doing it like a muscle. So I do that. I work out in the morning. Every morning I go ahead and connect with my physical body. And before I go to sleep, I do spend some time outside, whether it's in the balcony or in the ocean, the beach, to sit in stillness, to
Mm.
again remind myself how grateful I am for life, for having another day to breathe. And if I get the same gift tomorrow, then I'm very blessed because I know that the one thing that we all have is that we're all gonna go, so
Right, right.
just live life not as a mistake or as a trial and error, but just as an experience. Whether you name it good or bad, it's still something that you're meant to experience. So just look at it as it is. So for me, centering myself at night after a long day of work, after having so many sessions with my clients, obviously I'm taking in a lot, which I'm grateful for. But for me, my release is that time of breathing, of connecting back to myself. Sometimes I have to cry. Sometimes I feel like crying and I don't even know why. So I just sit and I start crying. I feel my emotions. I shake it off and okay, we're back. We're good. So really, I think the biggest practice for me has been checking in with myself.
Yeah.
I do that in the morning, afternoon, and at night before I go to sleep. I don't really watch TV. With my partner, he likes movies and shows. So sometimes on the weekend, I say Sundays is the day where I disconnect from my phone and I reconnect to self. So we spend some time in nature, outside, and watch some shows. But I don't really connect with TV that well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna show a couple things here to the audience out there, but yeah, one is, and this you were mentioning it, but the 5 minute journal was one of the first ever like journal hacks I got into. What's really pretty cool is it outlines what you're similar to what you're saying. I'm grateful for what would make today great, a daily affirmation, three amazing. At the end of the day, it was like three amazing things that happened, and what your goals for tomorrow. And I will admit, I think it's like $30. It's a really nice journal. This is the digital version, but I was I was so cheap that I just hand wrote it on after I bought the first one. So you can do that too, just kind of model it. But I am less compliant when I don't have the expensive version, which
Yeah.
looks like this. Oops, it didn't follow me when I switched screens. But no, I thought that was pretty cool. And then just with everybody out there, I did want to show them a few things that we were discussing earlier. So just so they can kind of take a look here. And I want to be mindful of your time too. So I just want to show everybody what we have here. So this is just for the viewers out there. If you're on audio, this will be in the show notes. But overall, to check out Anna Instagram, this is what we were talking about, the My Story client results and how she helps women. You could read through that. And then if you're going through like the link tree, there's a lot of really good resources here that you can kind of unpack looking at Anna's programming. And then you have, is the VIP coaching something that's newer? I know you have some different levels of what that is.
The group coaching calls. The group,
Gotcha.
so personalized nutrition and training and group calls.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, definitely encourage people to check that out. And with that, is there any other mentions you platforms you're on. Maybe we haven't had a chance to where people can find you.
Well, all the platforms, TikTok. I'm gonna start YouTube. I opened it a while back, and I haven't really put anything in it because I had this whole dilemma of what am I gonna record? What am I gonna say? You know, my perfectionist side. But it's YouTube. I see it as a platform where I just want to speak my mind, and I think that's my invitation. But all the platforms you can find me as Ana Capozzoli, and I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, and on Instagram.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us again today. And for everybody out there, thanks for checking out the First Optimal podcast, supporting the show. As always, we say at the end of every episode, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, comment. Like, give us your questions, because we have a great relationship with Ana. If there's something specific, we'll put you in touch with her, or how you can contact her directly. If it's a question we can answer, we'll gladly do that for you. But yeah, just appreciate everybody's engagement and checking it out, and hopefully you found some value, and stay tuned for some more exciting episodes coming your way. So thanks again, Ana, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, we'll see you guys.